right, welcome everyone. So there was a time where like I would do these streams and there would still be light outside, but we're like really far away from those days. So I gotta put some indoor light. Cool. Welcome. Today I'm going to show you how to manage your landing pages, your Webflow landing pages in Airtable. So what I actually mean by that is, let me just pull this up right here, is that you're literally going to be able to deploy, so create new landing pages from an Airtable base. So whenever you create a new row, we're going to automate the creation of a new page and also edits. So let's say you're editing and you have 50 or 60 landing pages that are tied to ads or something like that, and you want to edit the copy or the image on those pages. Instead of using the Webflow CMS, which kind of gets convoluted after a while, or if you have too many, we're going to do it in Airtable. So first, I'm just going to kind of walk you through the Webflow CMS that we have up and running, the Airtable base, and then we're going to do two different kind of sections. First is how to automatically create a Webflow CMS item or page from using Integromat. So when there's going to be a new row in Airtable, we're going to create a CMS page, and then we're going to do the editing section. So that means that whenever you're doing your edits in Airtable and you want to say, okay, I'm done with my edits, I want to deploy all these edits to Webflow, we're going to use Parabola to do that. So does that make sense? Excited for this? Let me know in the chat what your use case is. That's one of the benefits of coming live is you can ask me questions and I kind of edit towards whatever your use case is. The one I have in mind is you're a marketing manager with maybe 10-15 landing pages and you want to edit them, edit the text mainly. So yeah, let me know if you have a different use case or anything in mind. And so let's get started. So first, I have my Webflow website, which is essentially just one CMS and one template page. And if we look at this page, there's this comes from the CMS, so it's a city name. And then I have the image as well that comes from the CMS. And then I was testing before this, so we have a little value prop. So this you can imagine is why would you want to use this tool? And then a little explanation of why that value prop is important. And then that's it, really. So we have three variables here: header, a little bit of rich text here, this background image, and this header text. So if we actually look at the CMS, so you can kind of see that right here. So that's the header, little slug, value prop, rich text, and then some other stuff that I'm going to pass in, but that I don't actually use in the page. And that's pretty much my CMS. And you could imagine this is your persona pages, this is your ad copy, it's whatever you want. I just wanted to keep it simple for this purpose. And so now that we kind of understand what's in the Webflow CMS, if we actually look at Airtable, it's a copy paste of every single field. So ID right here, I'll get to that. That's actually the Webflow CMS ID. So it's this right here, the item ID. And I'll talk about why that's important a little later, because that's actually what's going to enable us to put the changes in the right CMS item. So then the city name, the slug, which is created by Webflow, created on, that comes from Webflow as well. Image. So here it's a URL, and we've kind of, if I click on it, that's the image you see in the background. So there's a little caveat there. And then, value prop, the text, some numbers, and then published yes or no. And we have a created time, which is a field created by Airtable, right? So this is automatically created. So really, so far, all I'm saying is that the Webflow CMS and the Airtable CMS are just kind of mapping fields one-to-one. With a few additions that I'll kind of walk through when we create the connection between Integromat and Airtable. I feel like I'm going really fast, so let me know if this is too fast or too slow. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So we've just created our Webflow CMS, and then we have our Airtable CMS, and they're pretty much copies one of the other. Okay, so what we want to do is, instead of creating pages here in this kind of unfamiliar, well, not unfamiliar, but if we're doing everything in Airtable, we might as well create pages in Airtable as well. So what we want to do is, on the creation of a new row, this right here, we wanted to check and say, hey, are there any new rows? And create pages when there are new rows. So I usually use Zapier, but I wanted to, switch it up a little bit and use Integromat. Very similar in functionality, but the difference with Zapier is that the free tier is much more generous. You have if-then right out of the box for free if you're in the free tier, in every tier actually. So it's purely usage-based pricing. And it lets you kind of go a little deeper into the different API calls, essentially, that the functionality is doing. So instead of talking about it, let's just kind of go through it. Actually, let me save this, because this is going to be this is the end. This is where we're going. So you have a new record here. We only filter if it's a new page. We create an item in Webflow, and then we update some information in Airtable based on the Webflow CMS item we just created. Hey Connor, how are you? Thanks for joining us from so far away. I guess it's like morning for you. So let's create a new. So they have these things called scenarios, which is what a zap, the equivalent of a zap. I'm gonna skip this. Okay, cool. So welcome. Good to see you. It's good to have an Integromat expert in the chat. So in case I make any mistakes, my first time kind of doing this live with Integromat. So we'll see how this goes. So first thing, we want to use Airtable. Actually, I should put it here. And so they call these modules instead of triggers and actions, but they're very similar. There we go. Airtable. So we want to watch records. And what that means is going to check for the creation of new records. So we want to use my deploy from Airtable. There we go. This is very similar for those who are familiar with Zapier, where we're just essentially saying how to, which table or which base we should trigger on. Now, one difference is that you actually have to specify a field that has a created time, and I think that's because it checks every time it runs from the last time it ran whether there was any new records created based on this created time. So it's a little different from Zapier, which has a direct integration. Whenever there's a new record, it pings Zapier. In this case, it's like a loop, and you have to have a field that is created time. And then view, that's fine. Let's give it 10 max records for now. Published. Okay, from now on. So if I create a new record here, let me create an empty record and just write test, and then let's run this just to see what happens. So it pulls up that record, right? And it just gives me a little bit of information. So there's this record ID right here, which I imagine is this one right here. So how we can check is that these two match. Yeah, so sorry, I did that quickly. You have the record ID from Airtable, which is that field right here. So we have a base table record. And then when I pull up Integromat, I have the ID. So I know that it found that record that it just created. So that's great. Now, what we want to do is go to Webflow. And we want to create an item. So very similar to Zapier so far. Yeah, this is it. Site ID, deploy from Airtable. We only have one CMS there. Okay, and then we're just going to map our field, essentially telling Airtable or Integromat, here are the fields from Airtable that you want to put in to Webflow. So we're just mapping, and you'll notice that I put a little AT in front of the Airtable fields, and that's more to do with Parabola than anything, but it kind of helps here as well. So we're going to put the image URL. So now I'm going to do this disclaimer now, is that if you do use this build and you want to change the images or use the images here, I would actually not recommend it, because you first need to upload them to Webflow and then go and get the URL of the image. So that's how I've been putting the image. I wouldn't really recommend this route. You can do it in Webflow directly. Yeah, I'll get to Parabola in a minute. Parabola will be here, which is, Parabola is going to be what allows us to check, or essentially put all the changes from Airtable into Webflow. So it's going to go through our Airtable, take each row and say, hey, change the CMS item according to that Airtable record. It'll be clearer once I get there. So right now we're just saying, if I create a new record, I want to create a new Webflow CMS item. Okay, so just value prop title, rich text, here we go. Number is number, city is city. Slug we're going to keep blank because Airtable will automatically create a slug based on the name of the CMS item. So I want to keep that blank, and then once the item is created, I want to pass it back from Webflow to Airtable to fill that. So archive no, draft no, live. I'm not going to define live because this is not a live website. So everything I got to do here, I would have to do a manual publish, but in your case, you can decide whether you want to push to live or not. Here we go, here we go. Okay, that should work. So let me actually go ahead and create a more real example. So let's say Ottawa, your future city there, Connor. Slug we're not going to touch, created on we're not going to touch. Image we're going to take the same one, and we're going to say Ottawa is great. And then 10, and then published is no, and I'll get to why I put it no a little later. So what this should do, if I run this, it should find that record, go to Webflow and create it. So this is where I get a little stressed out to see if, let me just make sure I did it correctly. Because I always forget to press OK in Integromat. Right here, it's really annoying. Okay. Okay, it's not asking me for ID, which makes sense. Okay. Let's try this. Okay. So let's see in Webflow what we created. Fingers crossed. All right, that seemed to have worked. Okay, so I have my Ottawa page. It has the right background image. If I come here, Ottawa, okay, great. So that worked. Ottawa is great. That's what we expected. So when we create a new record in Airtable, it's properly creating it in Webflow. Now, what we're missing is the ID, right? So this is something that's generated on the Webflow side. So we need to go ahead and once the record is created, go and pull that ID back. And same thing for Slug. Slug is not necessary, but ID definitely is. We're going to use it as a key a little later. So here we go. We're going to go back to Airtable. We're going to update a record. Same base. Deploy. I have a lot of Airtable bases. I spend a lot of time in Airtable. Landing pages. Here we go. Okay, so that's the ID. So we want to, so what's cool, it kind of breaks down the API call, which is great. So we want an item ID. And then slug, we want to go get the slug. And then the rest, and then we want to update published. So this, I'm going to do this now. So I essentially have to find a way to know whether this is published, yes or no. So I'm going to set this to yes once we get to this step. So I'm just going to say yes. There we go. Okay. Oh, record ID comes from step 1. So this is the ID from step 1. Let me know if that was too quick, or I'm happy to kind of spend a minute here if this makes sense or if there's any questions. So I'm just going to run this again. Hopefully it's going to get that same record. Okay, no, it didn't find any records. Okay, so let's go ahead and create another record. So Connor, I don't know if you have a favorite Canadian city after Ottawa, but let's say Edmonton, which I do not recommend anyone living in Edmonton. It's cold as. Edmonton is cold. 12. And then we're going to put published equal no. And I'm going to put this one as yes for now because it has been published. Okay, let's run that again. Okay, so it found something, created it in Webflow, created it in Airtable. If we come back here, I have the ID, Edmonton, and I have the slug, which is /Edmonton. And I've put publish to yes. So that's kind of expected behavior, which is great, you know. And then if we come here, we should have, I can actually close this. There we go. We should have Edmonton as well, which we do. All right. Expected behavior, which is great. So we have now created pages from Airtable. One thing you could do if you're a little fancy is create a form where you fill out the fields. It creates a record, and then links to Webflow through Integromat. Just be careful. You need to create the filter on the view here, right here. So grid view. And actually, I forgot one thing. We can put a filter here that is publish equal to no, and the reason equal no. And the reason we do that is just because we're going to be running all of our records through Parabola, and there might be a situation where you create a record in Airtable that hasn't been published to Webflow, and then that might break your Parabola integration. So just making sure of that you're putting kind of safeguards in place, so it'll only continue if not published, I should call it. Cool, makes sense. Man, we're doing good time here. This is really fast. So I don't know if I'm going faster than before, or you guys are, you're so used to all these tools, but I'm gonna keep trucking here. I'm gonna keep trucking. So, okay, now what we want to do is, let's say, what, this value prop is cold. It's like it's -50 today, and then I want to change this one to actually it's it's really hot and it's a great city to live in. Now, one thing I didn't do is run it for Ottawa. So I know the slug is Ottawa. I'm just going to fill the information. I'm going to go get the Ottawa here. And then actually I go here. I'm on Ottawa. And the item ID is right here. Okay, that seems to make sense. Okay. So what I want to do is whenever I change things in Airtable, I want to have a button that I can press that says, hey, take all the changes I've made and deploy them to Webflow. So it needs to go through each record, take each field, and update the corresponding field in Airtable. But you can imagine, like, now we only have 3 records, but if you have 50 or 60, it becomes quite a pain to know, like, hey, did I update this? Where is it at? And then actually just going through Webflow is quite a pain, right? So you got to click through each one of these, find the field. It's much more convenient here in Airtable. So we're going to use a tool called Parabola. We could very well use Integromat, I think, to do this. I think Matthew had showed me a way of doing that. And so essentially what we're going to do is we're going to import every record from Airtable into Parabola, and we're going to import every Webflow item into Parabola as well. We're going to join those two tables directly, and then we're going to do an API export, which is essentially going to go through each record, and for each field in that record, update the corresponding Webflow item. That's a lot of words that I don't know if it made sense to you, but I think as I go along, you'll kind of see what I mean. So actually, yeah, let me just go through it here. So I'm going to create a new one. So update Webflow CMS in Airtable. Okay, so first thing, so Brian, I don't know if that makes it clear what kind of Parabola does. What it does is that you import information, it creates a table that you can manipulate, and then you could do API calls based on that table, based on variables in that table, without writing much code. It's a little bit more, I would say, code heavy, if you will. You do need to understand API calls a little bit, but it's relatively simple to get up and running. So let's go through it. Okay, 1 second. I need to go get my API key. I'm just going to hide this. All right, API key, got it. We are in. And base ID is this one, I think. One second, I just got to configure this really fast. It's probably here. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, I thought you guys could see this. Oh, apologies. I'm so sorry. I forgot to put you guys back into this is it. And then table name. So I don't know if the Parabola guys are usually here. It'd be great if this was like a select and not an input text. Okay, there we go. So what we've just done, we've imported Airtable. You specify your base ID and then your API key before that. Put the name of the table. Mine is called landing pages, and then I'll import that table into Webflow, into Parabola, I should say. Okay, so we have our ID, which is the record ID, the created time. There's actually two of these. One is like Parabola creates one, and one is my actual records, but it doesn't really matter. And then we have all of our fields. So then we're going to do something very similar with Webflow. Webflow import. Okay, so this is where you kind of need to understand API calls a little bit more. So I'm just going to go and copy paste some information. So let's say I want to do a get call to sites, but that's not exactly what we want to go get, but I just want to kind of talk through it. I'm going to go get my bearer token like that. And what that tells me is here are the site, right? So it pings Airtable and tell me, hey, give me information at the site level. But what we actually want is we want to know what items do we have in the CMS in that site, right? So if we go into the API documentation, Webflow, we want to get to items or collections. Let's say get all items for a collection, right? So we want to do get collections, collection ID / items. So we need to get first collection ID. So it's going to collections, list collections. So we need to do get sites, site ID / collections. So let's go ahead and do this. So the site ID is right here. So sites / site ID, which we just got, collections, show updated results. Okay, that tells me, hey, you have one CMS in that site, and the ID is this one right here. So you go copy paste that. And then we go into collections / that collection particularly, and then items. I think that's it. Let me just go collections, get all items for collections. So / collections, the collection ID itself / items. So that makes sense. It is exactly like Postman, yes. The only difference being is that once you get information into Parabola, you can actually do operations on it and then send it to a third party, right? Third party being whatever application or wherever, and you could do API calls based on that table as well. Okay, so it gave us this little JSON, right? So it kind of looks like this. And we actually want, so we have items, which is the information that we want right here. And then we have kind of count, limit, offset, total. So that's what we have a table right now that is that big JSON of items, and then count, limit, offset, total. So we need to specify that items is a top level key. And then we're going to update that. And then it's going to give us our table. So this is our table of everything that's in Webflow. Now, as I was doing this, I kind of realized that you don't actually need to import the Webflow information. Like you have everything you need in Airtable. Like you have the ID and you have all of the fields. So it's not actually necessary to do this, but I do like doing it just to debug. So we are going to join those two tables together. So like this, and then like that, boom. That tells you that these two tables are an input to the join. And we're going to select, it's underscore ID. So we know that both of them have the Webflow ID, right? So we want to say, okay, we'll merge all the Webflow items that have the same underscore ID as underscore ID in Airtable. I should name my stuff better. You are correct. I think it should be ID. Let's just see what this looks like. Okay, so that gives us the ID. And then we have kind of our Webflow records as well. So we have value prop rich text, which is the same as AT value prop rich text, right? So this is just a way of matching and seeing what's changed. So in Webflow right now, for this city, the value prop text is cold, and we want to update it to it's -50 today. So again, not a necessary step, but I do like doing it just so whenever I am debugging, I can understand what's going on. Makes sense? Too fast, too slow? I don't know anymore. I feel like you guys are pros here. Let me get back here. So just we have merged Webflow and Airtable CMS. And so now what we want to do is for each one of these records, we want to do tell Webflow, hey, go to this CMS ID, item, I should say, and take every single field and pull in the new information. So go to value prop rich text and take this information and update it. Take this information, update it, take this information, update it. So it's a little inefficient in that I'm just going through the whole table and updating all of the values, whether or not they've changed. There's probably a better way of doing this where you just check whether they've actually changed. Actually, what you could do really easily is filter out anything where the rows are not identical, but I'm not going to go through that. I don't mind. Parabola gave me a free account, so I can just do as many runs as I want. I don't really care. So we're going to do an API export. So what that means is that we're going to do an API call for each row using data in that table. So we're going to connect that. And if we go back, we come here. So if we look at the documentation and say, hey, we want to update one particular item in our Webflow CMS. It's a patch live collection item API call. And so the type of call is patch. The URL is this right here. And then in the body right here, you're specifying what you want to change. So here, they're making a call and they're going to the field name and updating it to updated exciting blog post title. What we're going to want to do is update a few fields. So it's going to be a patch call. API endpoint is this right here. There we go. Oops, that is not the right. Here we go. And it's api.webflow.com, I think. Yeah. Okay, so collection ID, this right here. Let's go and get it from Webflow. Yeah, right there. And then item ID is a variable that's in our record. So item ID is underscore ID right here. So that's the item we want to update. So what we can do in the API call is underscore ID like that. And then we want to specify a body. So what we want to do, let's just copy paste this one right here. And then we say, okay, so what field in Webflow do we want to update? We want to update the value, let's say value prop title, this right here. So we want to update value prop title with the Airtable value prop title. So like that. Oops. Let me just remove this and then say AT value prop title like that. And let's remove this. So let's just try one with just the value prop title. And we're going to remove that. So I'm essentially going to change one of the cities, and that'll update the text. So let's just, oh, okay, I need this, and I need to go get my bearer token. Just a second. We're almost there. Okay, we've got some time here, so I'm just going to copy paste this. And then I think with that, it should work. So this, when you're doing this kind of API export, if you're just testing, it won't run on Parabola. We need to do a live run. So let's go ahead and change one of the cities from Ottawa to Ottawa 2 or something like that. Let's go here. No, we want the city itself right here. Ottawa 2. So is this the right one? Yes. Let's publish. Let's run now. Oh, and it failed. What failed? Okay, it failed here. Oh, no API version specified. Okay, that's easy. Okay. So there's a few parameters that you need to specify. Is this right here? Accept version 1.001. Add custom header. accept-version, and then 001. And then the other one is content type. Actually, I should copy paste this. All right, that's a kind of error I can fix. Content type. It's copy paste that. Okay. Let's try that again. Close this. So let me just, okay. Let's publish it. Let's run now. Fingers crossed. Okay, 404 is better than 400. Okay. So what happened? Okay. Collection not found. Okay. That's okay, we can do that. So maybe I have the wrong collection ID. Let's come here. And then we should have ID right here. So let's make sure that those are the same. Okay, let me go back to draft. This is the part where I start sweating here. Okay, that seemed to change. So let's try that again. Publish. So I was doing so well. I was doing so well until this. Oh yeah, but I changed it. Okay, here we go. Let me just rerun this. There we go. Okay. Back to published. That's weird. Okay. Okay, it seems to be fine here. Publish. Oh, I was clicking on, okay. That's weird. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, awesome. So that worked. Whew. I think it worked. So what we should have, if I refresh here, is Ottawa 2. There we go. And it did not update. Oh, it's because okay, I see what I did. I didn't update at city. Come here. Okay, so if we go to the value prop in Ottawa, I think that's what changed. Here we go. Or Montreal. That's great. Let's see what's here. Okay, it should have updated here. So let's try that again. Value prop. Oh, okay. Value prop title. Okay, I didn't actually change those. So this is what I should have changed. Value prop title. Test 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's run that again. It's been a long day. Let's do this again. Here we go. Run again. Okay, running. Almost done. There we go. Let's refresh this. And then come here and go into value prop Ottawa 2. So that took the field Ottawa 2 and updated it. And then I haven't changed the Rick's text, but then test. And so it updated that as well. So let's actually, it's right here, the test right here. So let's actually do the proper, so we want to map every single variable. So we need to map right here in the body of the call. So we've only done one, so we need to do a few of these. So we go back into draft. I'm really happy that that worked. So we're getting into the nitty-gritty here. Okay, so the variable we want to update is, let's say, city. So let's say we want to change the city name. Let's find the name right here. So name maps to, and then it's underscore city. There we go. And then little comma. So that's the first variable right here. Actually, it says city here. Maybe it should be city. Not sure. That's weird. It's keeping it as name. Okay, that's fine. And then next, I won't map all of them. I'm just going to do @city as well. Right, so that's the first one. And then this one we've already done. And then this is the last one. So it's called add value prop rich text, like this. And then we're mapping it to this right here. Put a little comma. And that should work. So refresh this. So essentially, let's say we change this to, so let's say test1, test2, test3, and then let's just put the same thing, test1, oops, test1, test2, test3. Okay, so now we're editing our stuff in Airtable. And when we're ready, and you know, I'm doing this manually, but you can put this on a 5-minute timer or a 10-minute timer. So it just checks your Airtable and updates new information in the page. I would maybe put it daily, or manual is fine as well. So let's publish this and then run one. Let's see if this works. Seems to be doing okay. Then we come here. And if it worked, which I hope it did, test 3, test 2, and then test 1 is what we wanted. Awesome. So there you go. How to manage and deploy your Webflow landing pages from Airtable. So I don't know if anyone made it to the end. Hopefully I didn't lose you guys in the path, but that's what I wanted to show you. So I'm going to check that last box. There we go. So yeah, I'm going to take a couple minutes if there are any questions. If not, thanks for joining. And yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys do with this. Let me know. Yeah, cool. Any questions before I go? Any thoughts? No? Too much information in 45 minutes. All right. Thanks, Brian. Hopefully, let me know how you use this. So you can change images. The question is there a way to change landing page designs using this? Like, no, I wouldn't recommend it really. Like, that's what Webflow is for. This is more of like, I have 100 pages. I don't necessarily want people to go into Webflow, and I just want them to edit the copy, potentially images. But again, I wouldn't really recommend it. It's really just for an easy way to change the copy on the page when you have a lot of them. Honestly, it's not the most useful build. You can use the editor as well in Webflow, right? Which is very useful. So I mostly did this for fun. Or if you are managing 50, 60 pages, I think this makes sense. I never know when to sign off on these things. So I'm just going to go do it now. Make sure to subscribe. I don't know, is that what people say at the end of YouTube videos? I guess so. Yeah, thanks, Colleen. Good. Thanks for joining. All right, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Even though I'm Canadian. Yeah, have a great week. And if you have any ideas for the next live stream, email me, reach me out, talk to me on Twitter. I'm super easy to find. And as always, thanks for joining, and I'll see you next week. Cheers. Bye.